During the next 50 years, this strange and terrible legend of the twin babies became fixed and consolidated. Their appearance, luckily for those who inhabited the house, was exceedingly rare, and during these years they seem to have been seen 4 or 5 times only. On each occasion, they appeared at night between sunset and sunrise, always in the same long gallery, and always as 2 toddling children scarcely able to walk. And on each occasion, the luckless individual who saw them died either speedily or terribly, or both speed and terror, after the accursed vision had appeared to him. Sometimes he might live for a few months. He was lucky if he died, as did the servant who first saw them, in a few hours. Vastly more awful was the fate of a certain Mrs. Canning, who had the ill luck to see them in the middle of the next century, or to be quite accurate, in the year 1760. By this time, the hours and the place of their appearance were well known, and, as up till a year ago, visitors were warned not to go between sunset and sunrise into the long gallery. But Miss Canning, a brilliantly clever and beautiful woman, admirer also and friend of the notorious skeptic M. Voltaire, wilfully went and sat night after night, in spite of all protestations, in the haunted place. For 4 evenings she saw nothing. But on the 5th she had her will, for the door in the middle of the gallery opened, and there came toddling toward her the ill-omened, innocent little pair. It seemed that even then she was not frightened, but she still thought good, poor wretch, to mock at them, telling them it was time for them to go back into the fire. They gave no word in answer, but turned away from her, crying and sobbing. Immediately after they disappeared from her vision, she rustled downstairs to where the family and guests in the house were waiting for her, with the triumphant announcement that she had seen them both, and must needs write to M. Voltaire, saying that she had spoken to spirits made manifest. It would make him laugh. But when some months later the whole news reached him, he did not laugh at all. Mrs. Canning was one of the great beauties of her day, and in the year 1760 she was at the height and zenith of her blossoming. The chief beauty, if it's at all possible to single out one point where they are all so exquisite, lay in the dazzling colour and incomparable brilliance of her complexion. She was now just 30 years of age, but in spite of the excesses of her life, retained the snow and roses of girlhood, and she courted the bright light of day, which other women shunned, for it but showed to greater advantage the splendour of her skin. In consequence, she was very considerably dismayed one morning, about a fortnight after her strange experience in the long gallery, to observe on her left cheek, an inch or 2 below her turquoise-colour eyes, a little greyish patch of skin, about as big as a 3-penny piece. It was in vain that she applied her custom washes, in vain too were the arts of her medical adviser. For a week she kept herself secluded, martyring herself with solitude and unaccustomed physics, and, result at the end of the week, she had not to cover herself with. Instead, this woeful grey patch had doubled itself in size. Thereafter, the nameless disease, whatever it was, developed in new and terrible ways. From the centre of the discoloured place, there sprouted forth little greyish-green tendrils, and another patch appeared on her lower lip. This, too, soon vegetated, and one morning, on opening her eyes to the horror of the new day, she found that her vision was strangely blurred. She sprang to her looking-glass, and what she saw caused her to shriek aloud with terror. From under her upper eyelid a fresh growth had sprung up, mushroom-like in the night, and its filaments extended downward, screening the pupil of her eye. Soon after, her tongue and throat were attacked. The air passages became obstructed, and death by suffocation was merciful after such suffering. More terrible yet was the case of a certain Colonel Blantyre, who fired at the children with his revolver. What he went through is not to be recorded here. It is this haunting, then, that the Peverills take quite seriously, and every guest on his arrival in the house is told that the long gallery must not be entered after nightfall on any pretext whatsoever. By day, however, it is a delightful room and intrinsically merits description. Apart from the fact that the due understanding of its geography is necessary for the account that here follows. It is full 80 feet in length and is lit by a row of 6 tall windows looking over the gardens at the back of the house. A door communicates with the landing at the top of the main staircase, and about halfway down the gallery in the wall facing the windows is another door communicating with the back staircase and servants' quarters, and thus the gallery forms a constant place of passage for them in going to the rooms on the first landing. It was through this door that the baby figures came when they appeared to Mrs. Canning, and on the several other occasions they have been known to make their entry here, for the room out of which Handsome Dick took them lies just beyond at the top of the back stair. Further on again in the gallery is the fireplace, into which he thrust them, and at the far end a large box window looks straight down the avenue. Above this fireplace there hangs with grim signification a portrait of Handsome Dick in the insolent beauty of early manhood attributed to Holbein, and a dozen other portraits of great merit face the windows. During the day this is the most frequented sitting room in the house, for its other visitors never appear there then, nor does it then ever resound with the harsh, jovial laughter of Handsome Dick, which sometimes, after dark has fallen, is heard by passers-by on the landing outside. But Blanche does not grow bright-eyed when she hears it. She shuts her ears and hastens to put a great distance between her and the sound of that atrocious mirth. But during the day the long gallery is frequented by many occupants, and much laughter, in no way sinister or saturine, resounds there. When summer lies hot over the land, those occupants lounge in the deep windowed seats, and when winter spreads his icy fingers and blows shrilly between his frozen palms, congregate around the fireplace at the far end, and perch, in companies of cheerful chatters, upon sofa and chair back and floor. Often I have sat there on long August evenings, up until dressing time, but never have I been there when anyone has seemed disposed to linger over late without hearing the warning, "It is close on sunset. Shall we go?" Later on in the short autumn days they have often had tea laid there, and sometimes it has happened that, even while merriment was most uproarious, Mrs. Peveril has suddenly looked out the window and said, "My dears, it is getting so late. Let us finish our nonsense downstairs in the hall." And then for a moment a curious hush always falls on the family and guests alike, and as if some bad news had just been known, we all make our silent way out of the place. But the spirits of the Peverills, of the living ones, that is to say, are the most mercurial imaginable, and the blight which the thought of Handsome Dick and his doings casts over them passes away again with amazing rapidity.